When Gandalf first came to Middle-earth, he feared Sauron so much that he thought he wouldn't stand a chance against him. If so, how did the Grey Pilgrim go from a frightened wizard of the Istari to become a source of leadership and inspiration to the armies of the West as Gandalf the White? Today in Fantasy Archive, we will experience the climax of Gandalf's journey, starting with his search for Gollum after the events of The Hobbit, up until his stance at the Black Gates of Mordor, while two hobbits are trying to do the impossible: destroy the One Ring. 10 years after being banished from Dol Guldur, Sauron declares his return to all of Middle-earth. The White Council met one last time to discuss the fate of the Rings of Power. SARUMAN calmed the others, saying he had knowledge that the One Ring was lost in the Great Sea. Still, SARUMAN, jealous of Gandalf, set spies on him. SARUMAN learned of the Shire. One day, he meets a very particular Dunedain that no Lord of the Rings fan had ever heard of before: Aragorn, son of Arathor and Isildur's heir. They become friends, for they both want to defeat Sauron, but have not forged a plan yet. Mostly because the plans of the Dark Lord remained a mystery and that One Ring hadn't been found yet. Or so they thought. Gandalf constantly visited the Shire. He met Bilbo and his nephew Frodo on occasion with balanced companionship. Gandalf started to worry about Bilbo's appearance, considering that he's more than 100 years old and he appears to be in his 50s. He remembered how Bilbo lied about how he got the ring. Such un-Hobbit-like behavior aroused his suspicions. Gandalf visits Minas Tirith, where he meets and trains Faramir, son of Denethor. After Bilbo's 111th birthday party and an amazing display of fireworks courtesy of the Grey Pilgrim, Gandalf talks Bilbo into leaving his magical ring in Bag End so Frodo can inherit it. He agrees, but later starts to change his mind and starts to get hostile when Gandalf insists. Gandalf stood at full height and projected his power, which brings Bilbo back to his senses. Then Gandalf explains to Frodo his suspicions that this may be a ring of power, but is unsure of which of the many that were created by the elven smith Celebrimbor. Leaving the ring and Frodo behind, Gandalf travels to track down the creature Gollum to solve this riddle once and for all. Nevertheless, he fails at picking its trail, so the Grey Pilgrim asks Aragorn for help, being the best tracker of all the Dunedain. Gandalf goes back and forth between the Shire and the capture of that creature, not knowing yet the real scope of the mission. Then, after a search that goes on through many days, the future king of Gondor captures Gollum and brings him to Thranduil's woodland realm, where the wizard interrogates it, finding a most disturbing truth. Gollum said to Sauron the words Baggins and Shire. With this terrible information, Gandalf goes straight to Bag End where, after making a stop in Minas Tirith and reading Isildur's scroll of his lost memories, this reveals to him that this is indeed the One Ring. When preparing to escort Frodo to Rivendell himself, Gandalf meets with Radagast the Brown on the outskirts of Mirkwood. There, Radagast tells Gandalf that he's been summoned to Isengard by Saruman. Gandalf, before answering the call of the White Wizard, leaves a letter for Frodo in Bree that the innkeeper forgets to send. After going to see the master of the Istari in Isengard, Saruman is revealed as a traitor. He asks Gandalf that they take the ring for themselves and seize power from Sauron. Gandalf refuses and is imprisoned in the Tower of Orthanc. He then remains there for 2 months until rescued by the King of the Eagles, Gwaihir. He flies him to Edoras, where the wizard takes the best horse Rohan has, Shadowfax. Galloping at top speed, Gandalf goes back to the Shire, discovering that Frodo has already left. The debris, finding out that Aragorn has taken the hobbits with him to Rivendell. It seems that he's always one step behind. Then, once in Amon Sul, also known as Weathertop, Gandalf is attacked by the Nazgul, being chased by 4 of the riders until he reaches the borders of Imladris. Gandalf gets to Rivendell. A few days later, so does Frodo, Aragorn, and company. Frodo is injured by a Nazgul blade. After healing, a council is held. Gandalf attends the Council of Elrond and is elected the leader of the Fellowship of the Ring, tasked with the mission of going to Mordor to destroy the One Ring. After passing through Caradhras, the Misty Mountains, but being stopped by a terrible storm, the Fellowship descends to Moria, where they encounter a goblin army and a Balrog of Morgoth, Durin's bane, woken by the dwarves when they dug too deep. Gandalf guides the Fellowship to the bridge of Khazad-dûm, where he stops the Balrog by destroying the bridge and falling himself into the abyss of great depth, battling the Balrog for 8 straight days. Then, on the last day, Gandalf persecutes the Balrog into the endless stairs, finishing him on the Silverton on the Misty Mountains. Then, right there, and due to his wounds and exhaustion, Gandalf the Grey dies alone in the misty mountains that separates Rivendell from Lothlorien. Even though Gandalf has accepted death, Ilúvatar, god of all things, knows that no one better than him can face Sauron's darkness. With that in mind, Ilúvatar transforms the spirit of Gandalf back into his body, but at the same time, gives him the high powers that makes him the White. After days of laying in the snow, Gwaihir finds Gandalf's body and brings him to Lothlorien, where Galadriel gives him new clothes and a superior staff. He learned that Frodo and Sam left the Fellowship to attempt the quest without the others. Then, after finding Aragorn and company in Fangorn, they go to Edoras to expose Grima Wormtongue and plead so Theoden brings his people to Helm's Deep. Then, just like in the movies, Gandalf goes to find the Rohirrim to destroy the remaining Uruk-hai in the Battle of the Hornburg. Without losing time, he takes the Fellowship and Theoden and goes to Isengard to negotiate with Saruman to find what Sauron is truly planning. There he finds that the Ents, along with Merry and Pippin, attacked Isengard, ruining its outer walls and killing Saruman's orcs. Gandalf offers Saruman forgiveness if he would help them. The former White Wizard does not comply, so Gandalf destroys his staff, banishing him from the Istari. After that, when the Palantir of Orthanc is thrown by Grima, Pippin sees Sauron's plan in a vision, making Gandalf aware of the situation and traveling to Minas Tirith to help Gondor against Sauron. After defending Faramir from the Nazgul and learning about Frodo and Sam going to Cirith Ungol, Gandalf stands as the leader of the Gondorian army in a battle that is described as one of the most important battles in the Third Age. Sauron, with his 100,000 orcs, trolls, and Nazgul, assault the city for hours and hours, making the task of guarding the Gondorian capital very difficult for the White Wizard, who even has to face the Witch King alone in the gates. In the most desperate last moments, the sounds of the horns of Rohan announce the arrival of the Rohirrim, which sweep the Dark Army without mercy. After Irwin defeats the Lord of the Nazgul, Aragorn comes from the south to fully retake the city. With the battle won, now there's only one question to ask. Has Frodo arrived at Mordor yet? After being elected leader of the armies of the West, Gandalf, together with Aragorn and Eomer, and the last Lord of the West, Imrahil, marches through the Ithilien to the Maranon, where the Black Gate is located, to stand against Sauron one last time to give time to Frodo to destroy the One Ring. The battle is crude, bloody, and cruel, but thanks to one misstep from Gollum, the ring finally falls to the lava of Mount Doom, disintegrating and destroying Sauron once and for all as he falls with his tower of Barad-dûr. Gandalf takes the eagles, rescues Frodo and Sam, and goes back to Minas Tirith to crown Aragorn II as the new king of Gondor. After the celebration, the wizard accompanies the hobbits to the borders of the Shire, leaving them to confront Saruman and go to spend the next 2 years with his friend Tom Bombadil. When he returns, Gandalf takes one of the last ships to Valinor with Frodo, Bilbo, Galadriel, and Elrond, finishing, at last, his mission on Middle-earth and leaving behind a world full of life and peace.